Greetings. Delighted to have you for the first of two parts of our Sense Month by the Sense Mapping team, part of the Content Evolution Federation. I'm Kevin Clark. I'm the founder and president and federation leader of Content Evolution, and I'm delighted to have Todd Hoskins with us as a valued member of our Sense Mapping team. And Todd is also the founder and CEO of Canopy Gap, a organization design firm. And you'll be seeing pieces of that emerge as we have our conversation today. What we want to do is share just a little bit about sense mapping. We have a special guest with us, Willie Yam. Willie was an executive with Lenovo, was our client for an engagement in Hong Kong, and want you to understand, with Willie as the protagonist, exactly what we're capable of doing. Today, we'll talk about this in terms of what we did to prepare to move toward working with a larger team. And then next week at this time, we'll talk about exactly what we did over a just slightly less than a week's period of time and what we were able to accomplish, which was fairly remarkable. So we're delighted to have you listening to us. For those who are listening later, I know that we would value your questions. Just let us know. You can write to act@sensemapping.com. Sense mapping is something that started at IBM about 20 years ago, where we were doing mapping exercises to understand the journey of clients. Most of those at the time were single lines. We started to do multi-track journey mapping, and a lot of the work that we did, some of the pioneering and some of the publishing in that, it was part of our team's practice and work that I helped engage people on in terms of 5 human senses and sense making. So you can look at sensemapping.world, and you can see how we look at sense mapping. And there's a maturity model on the landing page, and you can take a look at where you think your organization lands between the first level and the 5th level, where you have full understanding and activities that support a fully present organization and company. So before we bring Willie on, let me turn the mic over to Todd Hoskins. Todd leads internal organization design and coherence before we go out in the marketplace. And I want him to say a few words about sense mapping in the context of the organization. Todd?
Thank you, Kevin. And thank you, Willie, for coming today, as well as everyone else who's here live or on the recording. What does the organization dynamics have to do with our 5 core human senses? Well, everything is connected to our senses. If we think about it, sounds, sights, smells, tastes, touch, that everything in everything that happens comes through our senses. And so looking at this holistically, rather than just giving the customer an experience that involves a smell or a taste that are all connected and coherent, we want to be able to have that organization experience itself and the relationship in that team in a way that's coherent as well. So who creates the best experiences for customers in the world? Teams that work closely together as a coherent whole. And so the practice of sense mapping is both the external senses, and then it's how we make sense together. And then my specialty in looking at how do we foster team dynamics that lead to creativity and vitality plays directly into the experiences that we create for customers. And Kevin, you are on mute.
Yeah, it's easier for me to say thank you if I come off of mute, isn't it? So We're glad that we can share today with you. Let's dive right into the case with Willie. Willie, we're glad you're here.
Mhm.
Your background is, you've been explaining that. Tell us where you are, what that background represents.
I'm physically in LA right now, working from home. This background actually was a picture that I took from an airplane that before landing it in Miami. I went to Miami to visit the city with my sister, and one of the reason I want to visit the city because it's being a very happening place for a lot of crypto and new technologies and new business arising from that city. So yeah, and I think last week my sister actually went to attend the event called Bitcoin World, I think, in Miami. So it's definitely a very happening place. I like the city very much. But anyway, I just want to share with you some of the experience that we had with a sense mapping team, and the outcome that came out of the workshop is very exceptionally excellent outcome, and the support that we got from Kevin and Todd, as well as others in the team was very, very good. So I want to share those experience, but before I actually dive into those details, I don't know, Kevin, do you want me to share some background on the project?
Sure, and let me just, before you show the Lenovo side, let me just say that the entire sense mapping team, in addition to myself and Todd, is Jim Kwolek, all right, who's also the design director for Content Evolution, Dr. Kaz Yamazaki, and Kaz was the head of Asia Pacific Technical Operations and Design for IBM. A lot of our guidance for ThinkPad notebook computers came out of his interaction with the ThinkPad engineering team in Yamato, Japan. And finally, Dr. Stacy Baer, who was part of our team with ThinkPad. And I was glad to help Stacy get her, she's a dual threat. She's got her PhD in ergonomics from University of Kentucky, and she has her MBA degree I helped her get on IBM's dime from the Duke Fuqua School of Business. So that's our team. That's our core team. We do work with other people, both in Content Evolution and other practitioners that can support our practice. Willie, the ability to share slides is open for you.
Okay.
And if you want me to bring it up, I would be glad to bring up the charts that you shared with me.
Right. Okay. Let me see if I can share. I just have a few slides to give a context of what we're going to talk about today. Can you see that?
We can. It'd be great if you put that into slideshow mode so that we have a full screen.
That's right. Good. All right. Excellent. You can see those full slides, right?
We can.
Okay, good. So just to give a bit of background of my role as well as my team's responsibility at that time. As Kevin mentioned, I worked with the nuWorld organization. Within the nuWorld organization, I actually led a initiative called Digital Solutions. And this is our digital solution priorities. Primarily, we just try to, or at least we are being asked to develop industry solutions based on some of the emerging technologies and innovations, such as AR, VR, and mixed reality, like MR, as well as the AI and IoT. And today, we primarily talk about the IoT project that we work closely with Kevin's team to develop this sense mapping methodology into our design theories and design projects. So our team, I mean, I just want to highlight this because when I initially start the team, which is within the nuWorld organization, it's kind of like a startup team because as most people know about the nuWorld, it's very product centric and hardware centric, and this is the first time, as far as I know, that built around the platform, built around services, built around everything as a service, right? So this is a new business for nuWorld. So when I started this organization, I actually come up with this VSEM, vision, strategy, execution, and measurement. And the reason I want to show this slide is that I want to highlight one of those vision that we want to build a solution. It's a market-driven solution that deliver exceptional customer experience. Although this is our vision and mission statement, however, how we're going to do that, sometimes it is not very clear, right? I mean, we have a problem statement. Again, nuWorld is being primarily a product-driven company. How are we going to deliver exceptional customer experience based on people-centric strategy? It's not clear. So we need some guidelines for our team to really drive this into our productization and solutioning in the whole process. And again, I want to give you a high-level view of our organization at that time. So I built an organization into this sub-functional areas: solution innovation, development, management. This solution innovation is primarily focused on productization of our solutions, as well as the looking into the future of what the technology can do for us in terms of technology, in terms of new developments, in terms of digitalization. And then we have to market this solutions to the market with the pre-sale support and with the business development and pre-sale support. That particular function is primarily a customer facing and understanding what the customer requirements are, and then build that into our design prospect of the solution, and sometimes customization. And the delivery and post-sale organization is really after we sign on the project with the customer. We need to make sure the delivery of the project, the solution to the customer is according to the specs. And then the post-sale, it's make sure the operation of the solutions and the maintenance of the solution, it's carry on, according to the contract. And the platform operation, it's a very unique organization that I set it up, is that because we're delivering an IoT platform, when you talk about IoT platform, it's about, it's similar to like a cloud. So if it takes the customer through request and then contracting, onboarding, all the way to delivering, all the way to getting the result and measurement, as well as the finance of it, like for example billing and recognition of the revenue and so on and so forth. So there's a whole platform operation that has to be put in place to really deliver these services end to end to the customer. And then the director office is just our back-end financing, accounting, as well as strategy and planning and building the roadmap and so on and so forth. So this is our 4 or 5 functional teams that we basically built up as from the ground up, right, within Cisco, the nuWorld organization. And the reason I want to engage Kevin's team to really build this as a customer-centric solution team, so that when we deliver and develop those products to the customer facing, it's customer-centric and people-centric solutions. And therefore, the five senses about the sense mapping, it's very helpful for us to build a guideline in terms of into our design strategy, right? So that's all I want to share with you to give you a kind of background in terms of why we're doing this and how we're going to do this, and then what kind of people that we need to engage. In every stage of the design, we need to engage all those people from a solution innovation all the way to customer facing, selling, and business development, as well as the delivery and the operation team, to understand really from the customer perspective what the customers want, from the emotional all the way to the exceptional customer experience.
Okay, well,
Yep,
that's a good unpack of the organization you put together. Now, I'm sure that if you're listening to this, you say, I still don't know what Willie's making yet. All right, so stay tuned. Right,
Yep.
you will discover what the it is. All right, as we move forward. But suffice it to say, it was a fairly well funded with some organization maturity levels for engineering and operational excellence. He's trying to build in. So how does this become really attractive, to customers? So we started to do some work together. Let me now share my screen and say that okay. We had to do some work together ahead of time, right, to find out what was going to really make this work. And we were doing interviews and surveys. Todd's about to share the results of some of that work with you, and to show how we're going to bring a core team together in Hong Kong, but there's a lot more people who can't be there. And we want to make sure that they're participating and that there's room for people who aren't in the room to contribute ideas. And then there was pre-reading and pre-work. And for, both of us, right, my start in talking about customer experience is with ThinkPad, because I was the brand steward for IBM ThinkPad notebook computers before we sold PC Company to Lenovo. And this is where Willie and I met each other. We decided to have breakfast at the New Otani Hotel in Tokyo. Willie was in Tokyo on business, and we had a mutual colleague suggest that we should meet each other, because Willie had kind of put out a general call that maybe somebody could help us externally overcome our engineering and operational instincts and really be good with customers. And so after breakfast, we took a stroll here through the New Otani Gardens. And I pointed out to Willie that this was, this is in miniature, a highly intentionally designed environment, right? And as I'm pointing things out, and he says, you really understand this well. I said, well, I've been at it for a while. Is this what you're looking for? He said, absolutely. Let's figure out how to work with each other. So,
if you don't mind, I can just add a couple of comments.
Sure.
Again, that conversation leading us to really work closely together. One of the reasons always in my back of my mind is that my team has been constructed as a primary technologist. Right? We understand the functional features, understand how to build cloud platforms, understand how to put things together. However, how do we deliver an exceptional customer experience through our product and solutions? It's something that really not in our realm of experience. So we need some guidance, we need help, and we need particularly external help, because I couldn't find anyone within Lenovo to really deliver that. Again, like I said, I emphasize Lenovo has always been primarily a product and hardware-centric company, right? So we need to go out and then find such expertise will help us and give us a guidance. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are named people with jobs in experience, right, inside the company, but they still weren't what Willie was looking for.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Todd.
I think to put context around this, what Willie and his team were facing is what most technology companies face as a challenge. And that is, how do we humanize technology or bring life to technology? And the great engineering minds and the people who can make stuff that works really well. One of the taglines that we work with at Sense Mapping is more fully human.
Mhm.
So that doesn't mean that we stick a nose and arms on anything that has electronics in it. It means that how do we make it relatable and help it relate to people? So that comes into the full experience. And Willie's team actually was a lot of fun to work with. And all of the assumptions that people have about engineers liking to work solo or not liking a good time or a great meal was completely untrue. We had lots of laughs and great food.
Yeah, we did. In fact, we had a hot pot meal, and one of the lead executives for Willie engaged us in a very interesting game. All right.
Yeah.
So we won't go through that, but the fact is it was fun. There was a lot of collegiality, and we intentionally designed this so that it wasn't just work. We wanted it to be engaging, fun. We wanted them to experience what we wanted the customers, all right, to experience. And so we needed to bring them into that mode.
We can share some of those pictures next week when we talk about the workshop.
You bet. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the purpose of our time together, we said, was action, learning, and planning. And so that we would discover what the opportunities were for interaction on a client, customer, and employee basis. And it was important to include employees because, as Todd was saying, to the degree that it's well described, and the employees were interested in what's going on, the more likely it is that that could be projected to the outside world. That we would design experience, engagement, and presence, that we would explore how to add more sensory and intrinsic value to product systems and services. The core model here is what we call user strategic experience, bringing the business's business model, how it's going to make money, how it's going to engage the marketplace with customer benefits, and that would create a zone of mutual and co-created value. The agenda looked something like this, moving across a week. So while we knew what we were going to do, and you can see the lower part is talking about whether it's in the present, whether it's something new, it was in the future, something next, that we would go through this share, explore, discover, discuss, and create priorities and a plan, throughout the week. So let me pause for a moment, because we did, as we indicated, some pre-work. And the fact is, as we talked to the team, both one-on-one and as a group, it started to become apparent that we weren't all on the same page, right? Not just Sense Mapping team and Willie's team, that Willie's team, they were so dedicated to what they were doing that they were very focused and deeply siloed into doing their work, and their ability to rapidly communicate and effectively communicate to each other, that hadn't quite gelled yet, right? And Willie kind of knew this, right? So we asked Todd to get involved, right, with his organization design expertise to add to the in-depth interviews something that would allow us to look at what this looked across the different disciplines. So Todd, let me turn the call over to you because we got some really good insights from your work.
Thank you. Are you sharing screen, Kevin, or am I?
I can go get your slides if you want me to, because they're queued up.
Yeah, why don't
Stand
I?
by just a second. I need to go grab them off of your email. There it is. There, enable. Zoom makes you do a lot of clicks before you
Yes,
get
they
to
do.
what you want to show. So you just bear with me. It's on its way. Share screen. There it is.
Are you saying Zoom has design flaw?
I didn't say that, but we could probably help them.
So when
there.
Kevin introduced this term organization design, for those of you who haven't heard that term before, that the simplest way to say that is, how can we work more effectively together?
Mhm.
And one way that we look at that is, what are some new ways of working, both from a business process perspective, practices, but also how do we create the container or the environment where the team dynamics are such where people bring their full selves to work, where they're alive, where they're having fun, where they're more creative. And so some of the assessment work that we did beforehand was to look at both the dynamics of the team and where there might be bright spots or potentials for growth within the team. So we're just going to look at a few data points here. So intrinsic motivation, you've probably heard that term before. That means I don't need to hold out a carrot on a stick. Extrinsic is what we provide with incentives, whether they're financial incentives, whether they're accolades, recognition. Intrinsic means I am drawn inside of me to do these things. And so looking at these that the team's intrinsic motivation drivers, incredibly high. So you see the benchmark based upon other Canopy Gap assessments, the benchmarks there in the purple and the Lenovo's team in the red. And across, they get meaning from their work. They feel like they're participating in something important. There's energy that they're bringing to it. They feel connected to one another, and there's trust. So what this tells us is that this team likes working together, that they're very dedicated to working together. And it probably also tells you that Willie is a great leader. This is a great starting place. And even if we were to get some numbers here that show there's might have been some motivators higher than another, we look at this not through a problem-based lens as what's the problem we need to work on, but where is their momentum? And where can we carry that momentum forward? And here we have momentum across the board. Next slide.
Todd, I would just add before we move forward that, you mentioned that, that we would infer that Willie's probably a really good leader. I would say that he's also selected good people to come together because it's a relatively young team, right? So he didn't have to come in and motivate people that he just acquired because he landed in a position. He created a group of people that are working well, all right, and are motivated together.
Yeah, if I may, I
Yeah.
just want to add a comment on this one. As Kevin and Todd pointed out, that this team actually within Lenovo at that time, it's totally as a startup team. So I built from first of all myself as a first member of the team, and then I built the team into close to 35 to 40 people, all hiring from outside of the Lenovo. Well, not all, 99%, because we have one or two that's within the team actually I get from another organization in the nuWorld. But primarily all the development as well as the engineering plus delivery plus business development is all coming from outside of the nuWorld. It's a very young team, as you pointed out, and it's it's all coming from the industry as well as the with their own expertise in those areas.
So before we move forward, one last question. Willie, would you agree that you're a great manager?
No,
Okay.
I think yeah, we just want to build a common purpose. Once we understand and everybody come together, understand the common purpose. That's why I put up those VSEM. Vision is one of those things that we understand and we create the vision together. Yeah.
I might say that sometimes we will end up with clients who won't let us do this work. And that's an indicator too. So moving forward.
There's one more thing I want to point out in this slide that's Willie, we didn't know we were going to come together just to praise you. This is fun. The energy number, the benchmark there you see on a scale of 0 to 10, the benchmark of the clients we've worked with is 6.1. We could assume there that people bring 60% of their energy to their work. The global numbers we see on worker disengagement is that only 10% of workers across all countries say they are highly engaged in their work. And this is an issue of the world that we live in right now and the relationship that we have with purpose and how we run as companies. So I think this case is an important, also looking at what brings energy to a team or an organization, because this team had it.
You bet. You bet. So moving forward, Todd.
So this is based on a Likert scale, just looking at one question. The work that I do has a real impact on the value of the organization, that I personally do, that everyone in the organization gets a chance to answer this. And you can see that either people answered either a 4 or a 5. There was nobody who was in the middle thinking, I'm not sure what I do is incredibly valuable. That is a very high number. Next slide. Now we get to the designing systems with vitality. We've talked about energy. Where are some places that the data pointed to where we could probably address some attention at the beginning of the workshop that could boost the capacity of this group, going with already everyone's relationship to the vision, to the purpose, to their own value. But there's a few themes that came up, and Kevin, if you can go to the next slide. Oh, I think I missed a slide there. Do you try the next slide, or did I take one out? Okay, we took one out. There were 3 issues that came up in the data. One being dissent, and by dissent meaning if somebody had a feeling that didn't seem like it was to be expressed by the rest of the team, that they were reluctant to share that feeling or opinion. Dissent being one, communication being a second, as we referenced early in this conversation around silos, that the communication within the sub-teams was great. The communication between teams, there wasn't a high amount of awareness. People were nose down. They were taking care of what was their responsibility. And then finally, the third theme that came up was confidence in knowing the customer. And so by looking at these 3 themes of dissent, communication, and knowing the customer, it informs the exercise that we want to run when we gather as a large group, when we do breakouts, because we really want to make room for that dissent, which is also another way of saying diversity of opinions. That diversity of opinions is key. So our design process is informed by that, as well as building upon the energy in the group. What this last slide we're going to look at here is the service profit chain. And we're not going to take you through all the boxes and the flows on this chart. It is our strong belief, and this is backed up by the data, is that how you treat each other also reflects on how you treat your customers. And so we talked through this model with the team, but we wanted them to see that they're working together in this workshop format over the course of a week was not just about them, it was also about the customer. And if they wanted to serve the customer, this was going to be a chance to learn from each other and engage in such a way that the customer is ultimately going to benefit. The internal service quality of how teams serve one another ultimately leads to customer satisfaction, customer loyalty, and growth overall. We'll pause there for any questions, or Willie, if he has any color commentary.
I'll
Just one quick comment. There's an acronym that's showing from last slide was the SVS team. SVS stands for Smart Vending Solutions. It's the project that we're working on. It's an IoT platform that we're building to help our customer organization to deliver IT as a service. That's as a I just want to make that association.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I heard another voice question.
I was just going to add another comment onto that. Like, I agree with what you're saying, that the culture in meets the culture out. So that's kind of what what I always use in terms of my terminology as well, but I can identify with that and clearly identify with the brand piece, right? You want to engage with the brand, with your customer, the whole journey. So it's important that it's that virtual circle to not only, at the selling point, the product, the service, but also the feedback loop, right? So I get the whole brand and intersection or engagement with your customer.
So if you Google HBR service profit chain, you'll actually see an article that was published in Harvard Business Review about this, if you want to read more about the service profit chain. I think this was Heskett that was the one of the primary authors here. And it's something that I think it's worth spending some time with, because we have a tendency to look at internal and external as different environments where they're actually very highly connected and highly correlated to reciprocal success, right? That, to the degree that you're doing well with your customers, it actually creates an environment where you're able to attract very high quality people to come work for you, and vice versa. It just is, it's a virtuous cycle.
Linda, thank you for your comments. And that culture in, culture out is pretty catchy. I may catch on to that myself.
100%.
Good.
So with that, I want to go back to these charts. Let me just see here, slideshow from current slide. We gave you an unpack of what we were discussing. We did not impose this structure on Willie or his team. We co-created it in discussion, right? So there were, let's just rewind to time frame. It's 2019. That walk in the garden in Tokyo took place during the summer or the late spring of 2019. We did the actual workshop, which we'll talk about, our time together and what we accomplished next week. But we did that in December of 2019, which was, there were whispers when we were in Hong Kong that there was this really virulent flu, all right, that we needed to pay attention to, all right, which became COVID in the following year. So it was an interesting moment, you know, to be there. The other thing that was happening, it seems like ancient history now, but there were students that were protesting in the streets, and we were there at a moment, okay, when everybody was kind of satisfied and the city was quiet. It was eerily quiet, right, Willie?
Yes, but just right after all the protests and then all the
Yeah.
commotions. Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact is that we were there at a very, very interesting moment, right? The last thing that I'll tell you is that we put ourselves at a nice international hotel, and it was it was becoming the holidays, right? And so it was December, and the hotel had chosen a theme for the holidays. It was the Monopoly game. The entire hotel's, you know, lobby and all of the, you know, dining room was Monopoly themed for the holidays, right? It was an unlikely thematic, right, that we found playful, interesting, incongruous with the way that we would normally think of as the December holidays. Right, Todd? We used this framework that was designed by Kaz Yamazaki. We talked about Todd earlier. And it's important because we were doing rapid prototyping. When you look at the scenarios in the center, yellow, we did several cycles of, you know, planning and rapid prototyping together. And what this diagram shows is that at the lower part, there's business value being created, and the user needs to be able to perceive what that value is, and they have to come back together in a business planning document and a user requirements document so that you have, you know, an integrated solution and the ability to evaluate whether you're succeeding or not. So this is the approach, these are the outcomes. We unpacked this ahead of time so that people knew that this is what we were talking about, the language. And we introduced them to sense mapping, right, which was making sense and using 5 human senses to plan, you know, to being fully human, right? So we would do sense maps, and, you know, that's connecting the being of being human, thinking and doing, so that we're translating the values of the program into resonant sensory experiences for the people who are involved. And if you've been saying, well, what's a sense map look like? This is not detailed, but as you move across time, you're looking for what we call, you might hear touch points. You're looking for sense points, that's what we call them, sensory moments that give you an imprint when you first experience it. And then when you get the stimulus again, that it can be retrieved as a pleasurable moment or a meaningful moment. Todd, you know, we say that this looks a little bit like music, right? It's not designed to be music by any stretch of the imagination. But when you see a vertical line, it means that we have multiple things that are connecting in a particular moment, that those sense points add up to something that's more than each individual dot.
It's something I love about mapping is that mapping and directions are not the same thing. When you have a map, you have options. When you just get directions on your phone or you download directions, it's telling you where you have to turn. One of the great things about sense mapping, or just adaptive planning in general, is that as you try things, you learn new data, and certain options may appear more appealing than others. So you're moving towards a horizon, but your route might change. And so all of these dots on the map are not, we're going to do X by Y date. This is a series of options that are open based upon different categories, in this case, whether it affects the head, the heart, at what level, and then which sense is involving it. So it's a series of options.
So Willie, all right, we've kind of, these are some of the things that we shared with your team. And now let's go back to early November. We're a month away from coming to Hong Kong. How did you feel, right, at that point?
Well, I mean, as Todd pointed out, there's a, from his interview with my team, there's a 3 critical issues that's being, brought up as something that we need to pay attention to: decent communication and confidence in knowing the customer. At that time, we were at the development stage of coming out a MVP. MVP is a minimum viable product.
Mhm.
So the product has been, previously we actually launched some of the product to our key customers. Some of the customers are largest enterprise organizations in the finance, as well as in, pharmaceutical and so on and so forth. So we have pilot test some of those products, but in order to make the product to be minimum viable product, to be, scaled, to promote it to the market, we need a better design at that time, right?
Mhm.
And I just felt that at that time we were missing something. We're missing some people element in it. As you can, well, let me share with you the, quickly, the product that we're talking about. Hold on.
We need a drum roll.
Here we go.
That
Just a quick one. I just want to bring your attention to the picture here, right? So this is the endpoint that we deliver to our customer as an interface to the users, right? As you can see, our design, it's very industrial. I'm not sure whether it's user friendly or anything that, it serves the purpose of function of dispensing something, exchange something from the locker or from the vending machine for those IT devices. But then, how's it going to work? How's it going to deliver customer experience so that the customer can come back time to time to use these services, right? That's just something that we want to grab with, and then we want to build something a lot more succinct to the world, to the market, right? So that was the time stage or development stage that we definitely need help.
So what Willie's showing you, if you've been to an airport and you've seen, I think the most familiar in the United States is like the Best Buy kiosk, all right, where you can walk up to it and buy a pair of headphones or a cable or whatever. I think there are some cosmetics companies that have, similar, it's a vending machine. It's a vending machine, that has Lenovo products in it. And what you'll see is that what Lenovo wanted to do, as we unpack this next week, is they wanted to be able to be close to the customer so that if somebody needed, something that was in the catalog that was one of the things that would break, a cable or a
Battery,
something else, a mouse,
keyboard,
mouse,
yeah,
that you would normally tell somebody and would go to purchasing and then would get mailed to you and it would arrive X number of days later. Here, you'd say, hey, I need a new mouse. And they'd say, okay, you're authorized. And you'd be able to go down and, if this was in the lobby or near the cafeteria of your business, you'd just go get it. And it was instantaneous fulfillment. And it was pretty cool. It was a good idea. The lockers, yeah.
We will actually create a portal or apps on the iPhone or smartphone devices to allow the user to make reservations on what they need, and then just go there and then use the QR code to dispense those things from the vending machine. So anytime, anywhere service, and yeah, I mean, service, that's the concept, right? But in order to do that, we actually built a backend platform to service all the end devices in every building of the customer. Yeah.
So we've unpacked this fully. And for those of you who are here, you might have some questions, right? So before we get to the top of the hour, let me ask if you have any questions about what we were doing to prepare. Next week, same time on Tuesday, the 19th at 2 o'clock, we're going to talk about what we actually did in Hong Kong. So questions. I want to recognize Todd. You asked your new team member, Patty, to be with us. Patty, hello, glad you're here. Coco, glad you're here. Congo, any
Coco,
questions?
are you actually in a
Congo,
server?
yes.
Coco, are you in a server room or is that your background?
I think it's wallpaper.
I
In
think it must
Kinshasa.
be.
Yeah.
Kinshasa.
In Kinshasa, yes.
Oh, wow.
So Coco, do you have any questions? Was this helpful?
Until now, not yet.
Okay, very good. Linda, questions?
No questions. I'm absolutely along with the journey. I get where you're going. I knew, exactly what you're doing. I'm
Okay.
there with you, I'm tracking. And the only thing I add is, well, maybe for next week is the adaptive learning, as someone mentioned it there, and just designing for inclusiveness, right?
Yeah.
In any part of the process.
I mean, I consider it a big compliment for somebody who has a background in innovation at PepsiCo and spent time at a flavors and fragrances company, Firmenich, that all this tracks. That's good, right?
Yep. I totally got it from the beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing.
And I
Eric-
already heard the implication that we're promising to bring pictures of food next week too. Because we took a lot of pictures of food. We'll do that.
We actually had food in the plan. All right. It was part of our we'll tell you exactly how that plays in.
Mhm.
Cliffhanger for next week. John Rubin, any comments, questions?
Oh, I agree. This is interesting. Yeah.
All right. Sharon Olson.
Yeah, I just wanted to unmute. Yeah, this was really fascinating. I have heard a lot about sense mapping, just being part of content evolution. So I was really glad to have this in-depth look, and I'm really eager to see what's going to turn up next week with the more drum rolls.
Yeah, well, again, like Linda, with your background with Marco Bay and the work at DeGripko Bay, he was doing work of this type. He didn't expressively say it the way that we're saying it, didn't make it explicit, but he was clearly into the fully human, fully emotional, understood the psychology of imprinting and retrieval. So clearly a pioneer, right?
Absolutely. And it's very congruous with a lot of the work that I've been doing as well. So makes absolute sense.
Yeah, I would say that when you were doing work in luxury brands, the luxury brands pay a lot more attention to first impressions, packaging, sensory, all right, surrounding you, all right, with things that sometimes when you open a package, it's primed with a scent, right? So that's not just, visual and tactile, right? That, oh, look, I got a puff of something, right, as a result of opening it. So,
and I think also too, I think it was Todd who mentioned the idea about mapping around the connection points, whether it be head, heart, or gut. That was very much the type of work that we did and I continue to do with my clients, whether they're luxury brands or not. As you know, we talked about that with when we worked together at IBM.
Right,
Oh,
exactly right. And the point is that while colloquially it's interesting, head, heart, and gut actually map to different parts of the brain, right?
But
And
you know,
so the fact is that prefrontal cortex, main part of the brain, the what's going on in the pre-wired part of the amygdala, right, is when you're smelling, there's a high likelihood that it's passing through the amygdala first,
yeah.
right, before it gets to anything that would being able to auditorily describe what it is. That those 1 part per billion or whatever it is, 2 parts per billion that can pick up is coming from there. Erica, bring us home. Any questions?
No questions. This has been really fascinating. In my line of work, we do quite a bit understanding the customer journey. But so often it ends up being maybe 2 of the senses that we consider,
Right.
And these days so much is online, so you don't have the opportunity as much to engage taste or smell, for instance. But anyway, I'm thrilled to.
So many journey maps that you see documented are single lines, over time, right? And the fact is that while that is useful visualization, it isn't fully understanding multiple constituencies, interactions, and what's happening inside the human, right? So we think that we're, providing a great way for people to think about this. And, when it's done, it's a strategy worth framing.
Yeah.
So we have, a starting point. You understand what we've done to prepare. Let's talk next week about what we actually did in Hong Kong. And Willie, thanks for being with us to help us understand it. And we'll look forward to having you with us next week. Everybody,
Sure. Looking
have
forward.
a great
Thank
week
you.
ahead, and we will
Thank you so
see
much.
you next week. Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye, Jeff.